Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. Today, we are diving into something that is honestly incredibly complex, and that's systemic poverty. Specifically, we're unpacking Part 3, the government's policy of poverty eradication. Now, tackling an issue of this magnitude, it takes way more than just good intentions. It takes a massive, highly structured blueprint. So let's jump right in and uncover exactly how this blueprint was designed and the specific strategies deployed to lift millions of people out of destitution.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, 1, the strategy, followed by 2, target populations. Then we'll look at 3, employment paths, 4, multi-pronged objectives, and finally wrap up with 5, program efficacy. Section 1, the strategy.
So, when a government looks at a sprawling, deeply rooted issue like widespread poverty, what's their primary mechanism? Well, it's usually PAPs, or poverty alleviation programs. But here's the really fascinating part. These aren't just your standard cash handouts, not at all. They are highly specific, special employment generation schemes. The whole objective here is to engineer opportunity where there literally was none before. It's about giving people a mechanism to earn their way out of destitution.
Section 2, target populations. You know, when you're looking at widespread economic hardship, you really can't just apply a blanket solution, right? You have to pinpoint the most highly vulnerable groups. And according to the source data, these programs heavily target poor individuals living primarily in rural areas and small towns. We are specifically talking about landless agricultural laborers, so people who literally have no property of their own to cultivate. Then you have marginal farmers who are just barely scraping by on tiny plots of land. We're also looking at village artisans whose traditional trades might be struggling, tribal populations, and people isolated in really remote hilly areas. By identifying these very specific demographics, the government is essentially trying to tailor special employment programs to reach the folks who are the absolute most structurally disadvantaged in the entire economy.
Section 3, employment paths.
Now, what's really interesting about this strategy is how they cast such a wide net. The government actually splits its efforts into 2 core categories. On one side of the coin, you have self-employment schemes. These are designed to help individuals start their own small ventures or trades. And then, on the flip side, you have wage employment schemes, which guarantee paid labor, usually in large-scale public works or construction. And here's the crucial bit. While there is definitely a heavy emphasis on rural areas, both of these employment paths operate across rural and urban domains. This basically ensures that whether someone is in a remote village or a struggling urban center, there's a mechanism in place designed to generate employment for them.
Section 4, multi-pronged objectives.
But we have to ask ourselves, is just giving someone a temporary job really enough to pull them out of poverty for good? Well, as our source material emphasizes, poverty is multidimensional. It's not just about missing a paycheck for a month or two. It is a severe lack of the basic necessities for material well-being. And fundamentally, it's the denial of opportunities to live a healthy, creative life. So handing out a temporary job to fix multidimensional poverty, that's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm. It only addresses the surface. The solution absolutely has to be just as multidimensional as the problem itself.
Let's move along and see how this builds, because this strategy creates a really fascinating stacking effect. You see, the policy isn't just about step 1, generating jobs. That's literally just the starting line. By generating targeted employment, you move to step 2, which is raising the earning capacities of individuals and naturally increasing the wage rates in those local areas. And when people have higher, sustained wages, we arrive at step 3, which is absolutely critical, building durable assets. We're talking about individuals finally being able to acquire land, secure housing, or maybe purchase livestock. Once a vulnerable family has a durable asset, they suddenly have a financial anchor. And that compounding sequence brings us to step 4, ultimately and sustainably driving down poverty. It is a very calculated chain reaction. Section 5, program efficacy.
So the crucial point here boils down to this number, 33%. The poverty alleviation programs achieved a pretty massive milestone. Largely because of these initiatives, the proportion of the population living below the poverty line plummeted by an astounding 33 percentage points. I mean, we're talking about a drop from 55% back in 1973-74 down to about 22% in 2011-12. To put that into perspective, just think about the sheer volume of humanity that represents in a vast nation. That is millions upon millions of human lives structurally improved. It's huge. But of course, we need to look at the full, nuanced picture here. And this brilliantly illustrates the 2 clear sides of the program's efficacy. On the one hand, we absolutely celebrate incredible achievements. That historic decrease in poverty, a proven increase in the income of the poor, higher wages in backward regions, and vastly improved nutritional levels for the most vulnerable.
But looking impartially at the other side of the ledger, the sources note some pretty severe administrative and strategic hurdles. We see unsatisfactory administration that was just bogged down by complex procedural requirements. There were significant leakages, too. Basically, vague definitions of who was actually poor allowed non-poor individuals to take advantage of the system, which was often compounded by inefficient management. Plus, remote areas were frequently neglected just because they were hard to access. And a major flaw was the almost complete lack of local, grassroots participation in how these programs were actually designed and implemented.
And this brings us to a really profound critique raised directly by the source material regarding the fundamental strategy they used. These programs attempted to eradicate poverty by making a direct attack on it. But, they often fail to recognize that the poor sometimes lack the skills or initiative to even take advantage of these benefits in the first place. And they didn't always address the exploitative agencies present in rural areas. So I want to leave you with this final provocative question to ponder. Is a direct attack on poverty through employment programs actually enough? Or, since poverty is ultimately an outcome of the way an economy functions, must the overall structure of the economy itself be modified to achieve true eradication? It is a fascinating question, and it really strikes at the very roots of developmental economics. Thank you so much for exploring this complex blueprint with me today, and hey, keep asking those tough questions.